Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I am joined this morning by Ryan Weyandt, the CEO of the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. Welcome to the program, Ryan.
Christina, thank you. Good morning from Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is wonderful to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. We timed this specifically because June is Pride Month, and what better way to kick off this month, our first program of June, with you, and discussing the needs of the LGBTQ plus real estate community and ways that realtors can better serve them.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and obviously we love being able to dive into deeper discussions during the month of June. It's important to remember that the community is here for all 12 months, like every other minority segment out there. But it's nice to have the additional exposure this month to be able to have some of these conversations that we might not necessarily have programming time for the rest of the year. So I appreciate sincerely being able to spend the morning with the Houston Association with you. It's always fun to spend some time with friends.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, let's jump into it. But first, I do want to have you just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what the Alliance is.
Absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Ryan Wyant. I'm the proud CEO of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance. We are actually an international now 501c6 organization, so very comparable to the National Association of Realtors and many of the local, regional, and state associations. We have the same format, the same structure as a member run organization. We have a fully elected side of the house, which is in charge of governing the membership program. And then obviously my role as CEO is to run the business affairs and the continuity of the organization. So we focus on four things at the Alliance: education, philanthropy, business return or business development for our members, and education, philanthropy, and our advocacy policy, which is
Mm.
probably more pivotal than it ever has been. There are over 300 pieces of legislation in local houses in the country right now that are aimed at some kind of attack on the LGBTQ community.
Mm.
So our advocacy piece is instrumental to what we do. Our education piece is very important. I know that we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth a little bit later in the program. Our second year birthday is just actually right around the corner. On Father's Day of 2020, about 62 folks got together on a Zoom call and identified a need to go further in this space than we previously had as a result of a former entity that filled this space
Mm.
having dissolved. So we put a lot of hours in, a lot of volunteer time, put together what NAR called a steering committee, and actually directed us on how to go about doing that. And within a matter of a few months, we had organized formally, written a fairly comprehensive set of bylaws, deployed a chapter program, elected a board of directors as well as our officers. And I was privileged enough to receive an offer to stay on and signed a contract as the CEO in November of 2020. So in October, we actually brought the company public, opened the doors for membership. And between October 2020 and today, we've put on 2,300 members. So the growth
Mm.
has been aggressive. I say international because we've got quite a few members now that have joined us from Canada. We have some members in Puerto Rico, which I realize is still the United States, but definitely offshore. So it gives us a good feeling to know that we've expanded outside of the lower 48. But
Mm.
it's a work of passion. And I would say it is so pivotally focused on our membership program and our members. Everything we do has our members in mind. So we're very proud of that. We obviously formed the organization with a need for transparency. We're very proud of that. And in
Mhm.
the months, the weeks to come, we're going to be launching a consumer facing website for LGBTQ and allied folks around the country to actually come and find resources to help them navigate their journey through whether it's buying or selling, or even if they have tax questions. We're going to be
Mm.
offering 32 different professions to the consumer on a directly public consumer facing website that we're launching. So a lot going on at the Alliance, and we're very excited about it.
It sounds like it. I was going to say, it sounds like you've had a very busy 2 years, and happy anniversary. That's congratulations. That's wonderful. So you mentioned the passion and the need and the different sectors of the Alliance. So what is the goal of the Alliance?
Yeah, so our mission breaks down into a couple different parts. It's celebrate. I don't want to get this wrong. It's very important, right?
Hmm.
We actually break it down into three different adjectives, and then we break that down a little bit further into talking about what that means. And let me just get this. I want to open it up in front of me. And John Thorpe, our immediate past president, recorded a wonderful message that's still available on our website. The
Hmm.
formal mission is advocate, elevate, and celebrate. To advocate for fair housing for all and promote LGBTQ plus homeownership. To elevate professionalism in the industry through education and networking, and to celebrate diversity and inclusion in our members and allied partners. And then we break that down actually into a system of core beliefs as well. And this is what I didn't want to get wrong, because this is pivotally important to who
Hmm.
we are as an organization. And let me just read this verbatim. We believe in accountable leadership to the members of the organization, as well as the practice of transparency from all members in all things. We will be an organization that hears every voice and will reflect the values and ethics of its members. I think that's what separates us from any former organization, and maybe might be unique to how we move forward as an organization as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned education. What type of educational services does the Alliance offer to agencies or realtors?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. So we have two main curriculums, if you will, that we are deploying. Actually, on the 14th of this month, we have our second annual first-time home buyer training, which is consumer-facing. It's a virtual event. Registration's open right now. We don't charge for this event. It is free to the public. However, we do collect registration attendance just so we can feed that over to the areas where these folks are attending from, so we can encourage them to engage with the professionals through our directory in that area to find local resources. That's on the 14th of this month. But what I'm really proud of, on the 16th of this month, we've got our Q2 Alliance Certified Ally Program. This is anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes, depending on how many folks are in the classroom. And this is virtual as well, and how really interactive and participative everyone in the classroom is. It can go up to 2 hours, but this course is aimed at really diving at LGBTQ plus cultural competency, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. It's designed for straight allies to come in to ask some questions that maybe they don't feel comfortable asking in a public forum. We do call it closed door, even though it's a virtual session. It's not recorded. And once the start time begins, we do stop admission. So no one can come in halfway, misconstrue someone's question, and then obviously bring it public. But it does rely on the experiences of the folks going through the class. And I say that because everyone's at a different point in growth and learning and understanding of what the LGBTQ community is, myself included. As a white man leading this organization, millennial, I'll add, I'm learning something about our community every single day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that growth and acknowledgement that education is pivotally important to how we're going to continue to do better as people. That's one of the reasons why we brought this course forward. So at the end of this course, I don't want to say our attendees, the attendees who have participated, who have kept their camera on for at least 90% of the time, who have been engaged, do receive some proprietary credentialing through the Alliance that they're able to use in all of their marketing. They receive some promotional material that we provide them with. So if they want to co-brand their business cards or any specific flyers to cater to working with the LGBTQ community, so folks in the public know that they're going to get a true unbiased experience working with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
We offer that. So I'm very excited. We've sold out. Actually, I think we had 5, 6, 7 courses last year. They
Wow.
were all at capacity, and our Q1 course was also at capacity. So our Q2 course is the 16th of this month, right smack dab in the middle of Pride, and registration is open for that. I believe the cost to attendees is $75.
Wonderful. And we did share a link to that in the comments. So if anybody is interested, you can go check that out. We also just shared a general link to the Alliance website in the comments as well, if you'd like to go read more or see more about the organization. So obviously, as you described, there is a true need for this education. We appreciate that you put on these sessions throughout the year. It's obviously very important. What are some of the current real estate issues and trends that you're seeing in the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, well, great question. I think anyone that's with us this morning and understands the industry that we're all in knows what the current outlook for the market is.
Right.
Supply is still everywhere. In fact, I was just in Missoula, Montana this weekend. I was told that the median home price in Missoula, Montana is $475,000. The median rent price in Missoula, Montana is $1,500 a month. So we have an affordability crisis in America, and obviously that's driven by a supply crisis, both the rental and the purchase markets. We feel that in our community too, and I would say disproportionately so, as any minority community can speak to. Our home ownership rate in our community is 49%, which is well below the national average of 65%, which is well below the straight Caucasian population home ownership rate of 74% in America. So we have some work to do. There are different reasons behind why that number is where it is. Some of it is legality. In 29 states today, it's still legal to discriminate against the LGBTQ community in all aspects of the purchase process, including financing, mind you. There are no federal laws on the books protecting LGBTQ folks. So we talk about home ownership and the need to get those numbers up. The reality is that our community is still fighting for the basic right to not be discriminated against in all 50 states. The advocacy platform that we stand on and that we help push as a 501c6 organization is important for that reason. We face those issues as a community. We look at the intersectionality of our community as well, that being the complexity, the different levels of both cultural and thought diversity that make up the LGBTQ community. It really is a microcosm of society at large, right? We've got everyone from African American to Asian folks, Christian to atheist folks, certainly Democrats and Republicans, but every other diverse segment out there makes up our community. So we inherit the same set of issues that every other community is facing into our own. Our lowest home ownerships in this country come from our Black and Indigenous communities within the LGBTQ community. Those home ownership rates are in the single digits. So we've got some big areas of opportunity. Frankly, as the leader of a nonprofit, there's nothing I'd like to do more than put myself out of a job within a decade, because we've equaled out the field, and we don't need this anymore. I think that's the goal. But until then, the Alliance is about creating a safe space, creating education, answering some questions that might be incredibly uncomfortable for folks to ask in a very fair way so they don't feel embarrassed and they're still willing and happy to be around folks. The other part that I want to add to this is just the sheer numbers. The LGBTQ plus community in America has 1.2 trillion with a T dollars in purchase potential. According to NAR, we accounted for 12% of all home purchases last year. So there's a significant business side to this argument as well. This isn't just an ethical or moral discussion. This is a business discussion. We have an enormous amount of purchase potential, and working with the community is good business. So we want to make sure that the folks that want to get out of an endless cycle of rent are able to do that. We put out some figures last year, in April of last year, actually, that show that the average LGBTQ consumer spends 2 years in any given location and will go through 5 apartments in about 10 years. So it's a largely transient community. Only 35% of our population live within 5 miles of where they graduated high school. So there's opportunity there. And I think if we provide more education to folks on the consumer side, so they understand that they do have the ability to purchase a home, they don't need 20% down. I think we can convert some of these numbers from rental to purchase in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing those statistics. I think that's, again, very important to hear because, as you said, it's not just a moral question. It is also a business question. So I think it's important to hear those numbers. You mentioned discrimination and discriminatory practices. What types of discriminatory practices have you witnessed in your time with the Alliance, and how do you feel maybe they've changed over the years?
Interesting. Great question. Well, let me say before before we pop the umbrellas and head into the storm,
Sure.
overall, I would say generationally we're going the right way. A lot of
Mhm.
good things have happened over the last 50 years for the LGBTQ community, especially on the acceptance front. And a lot of that, I believe, is generational. I believe the kids that we're raising today are much more accepting, maybe educated to a different level, not more or less, but about different things.
Mhm.
And so their minds are a little bit more open. I think that's very reflective in social culture. I think that's reflective in the movies we watch and the shows we see on TV. And I think it's through that, plus the power of corporate change, that acceptance is really universal. And what most Fortune 500s are doing today, and you can go to any company's website right now, and I guarantee you that they've updated their logo to reflect pride colors for at least the next few days. Um, Corporate change starts movements, social change starts movements, and it's
Mhm.
through those two entities that we believe that we've gotten to where we are. Obviously, in 2015, we had marriage equality pass. In 2020, protections were extended to LGBTQ folks in the workplace. Prior to that, believe it or not, I could get fired just for having a picture of my husband on my desk in the workplace. Prior
Mhm.
to that Supreme Court ruling in 2020. So there are definitely some great things that have happened. Now, that being said, we have a long ways to go. And I say that because things just don't make sense in some areas. If we look at the real estate process and then we talk about our transgender brothers and sisters, a lot of folks who are transgender in America have problems purchasing property. And this is because their identification, the way that they present, might not match their physical identification form. Not every state has put provisions in place for those two things to match. And obviously, when you go to sign and close on a mortgage and your title and deed, all of those things have to be uniform. So we've
Mhm.
seen instances, and both the National Fair Housing Alliance and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development are investigating a lot of this, where folks simply aren't able to close on purchases at the last minute, and then the purchase dies because what we call dead naming. There's a name on it, a federal or state identification that no longer matches the name of the individual. Um, or it could be as complex as the gender has changed and
Mhm.
that hasn't been updated on the identification. Forms, there's still a miserable discriminatory pattern of forms and the pronouns that are used on forms. I know of purchase contracts in portions of the state of Kansas and Missouri that literally say he and she, a married couple, which isn't reflective of the modern day experience.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of work to do just as far as updating antiquated things in the industry that some of us just overlook and take for granted, right? There's a different form of discrimination out there, and that's a much more direct form. And unfortunately, we have seen that impact not just our members, but a lot of our consumers over the last few years since the Alliance has been on the scene. We have a pair of realtors out of a Keller Williams office in Orlando, Florida, that went through a terrible time last year. They were the direct attack victims of discrimination in that community. They're a married couple that co market and co brand their Keller office, and they do work with the LGBTQ community. Some of their marketing is it's energetic. They dance through properties on tour videos and such, and unfortunately, they received a significant amount of hate mail as a result of one of their campaigns that they ran. So I am pleased to say that I think the industry is with it, regardless of the hateful things that we see coming out of the
Mhm.
community. The National Association of Realtors, the Florida Association of Realtors, the Orlando Association, and Keller Williams all stood up immediately and very strongly condemned those actions. We see, there's currently, and folks can Google this because Inman's done a wonderful job of covering it. There's a current example in Missoula, Montana, which is one of the reasons why I felt compelled to be there this past weekend for LGBTQ Pride, actually, to support that community where there's a man who works half time as a realtor and half time as a pastor, and he violated the code of ethics, and he's
Mhm.
standing on his right to free speech to rationalize that violation. So, certainly that's not our territory. That's NAR's territory, but we're watching it because those things matter. What we say matters because it impacts people. So, there are cases of discrimination out there. I think there are some numbers that we put out last year that show that the perception of discrimination is greater than the reported amount of discrimination.
Mhm.
I can't tell you that means that people are more afraid of discrimination than actual documented events, but I can tell you that there's an implicit fear of reporting discrimination in our community because we are not a federally protected class. And a lot of folks think that if they report it, it's either going to go on deaf ears or they're going to face retaliation or retribution. We've seen some of that, and frankly, it's hard to fight because there isn't protection there. Obviously, at NAR, there's a code of ethics that members stand behind. So, not every profession in the industry has that code of ethics. At the Alliance, there are 32 different professions that you can join as. Certainly, realtor is one of them, but we also are very proud to boast a pretty rich membership of folks out of the mortgage industry, the title industry. We've got CPAs, we've got appraisers and inspectors. Really, every facet of the real estate process is represented, and not everyone has a professional set of governance that they have to adhere to. So it's constantly a work of progress, I'd like to hope, and another reason why we offer those educational opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing those examples. I think that's important for us to hear because we might be turning a blind eye to it or just be completely unaware of it. So we did have a question that came in, and if you have questions for Ryan, please type them in. Now would be a good time. We had a question that came in from Lydia, and she's right on track with what I was asking, or about to ask you. She said, how can we help on this matter? So what are your tips or recommendations for realtors to create inclusive real estate practices, and how can they best serve the community?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Lydia. So this is so generic, and we've all heard it before, folks. And I come out of a mind your P's and Q's upbringing, so I'm just going to be really candid about it. Treat others the way that you'd want your kids to be treated or your parents to be treated, because folks in the LGBTQ community are just like you. Are just like your kids, are just like your friends. In fact, they probably are. 1 in 3 houses in America either has or knows someone who is LGBTQ today. That's a real statistic out of the census. 1 in 3 homes in America. That's either your house or your neighbors to your left or your right. So keep that in mind and know that everyone out there has a story. Just like when we talk about mental health or we talk about other minority classes, we talk about just simple abilities, folks who can drive versus who can't drive, right? Treat everyone the way that you would want to be treated. And it's so basic, but I really believe that if we could just roll back to that basic, that fundamental belief, we would be living in a much different society than we currently do. If you see something, say something. And that's not my line. That's actually TSA's line. Anytime you drive by an airport, you'll see that on one of the flashing billboards outside the airport. But if you see something, say something. Good people too often stand by and let discrimination happen because they're afraid of the consequence of what will happen to them if they get involved. Minority communities need support from what we call allies in the LGBTQ community. We need people to stand up with us, not just for us, with us, to make sure that everyone out there understands that we're not alone. There are too many kids in America today who would rather be dead than be out. And that's sad. That's a tragedy that we really do need to fix. The more vocal the straight community is as allies of our community, the more comfortable folks are being able to live their genuine life and bring their true self out their front door every day when they go to work. So, Lydia, I would say, make sure that you're giving everyone an equitable experience. Don't treat a couple of 2 women that come into an open house any differently than you would a straight couple. Make sure that you're showing them the same things, that you're telling them the same things, that you're giving them the same information and access to the same listings when they're looking for a home. Make sure that you're going out of your way to extend that customer service that you're probably great at and extend to every other client. Just make sure that you're paralleling the experience between any 2 sets of clients. You're going to stay out of trouble, and you're going to make folks in our community feel welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ryan. So I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, just a few comments telling you thank you for this information. They love it. They love you and reminding them of the golden rule. Ryan, is there anything else that you'd want to share with our viewers today?
Well, listen, folks, it's 2022. And I know we've said this, some of us for as long as we can remember, but I really believe that things have gotten better. And we talk about some of these situations and we talk about some of the discrimination. I don't think that that's the overarching message. I really do believe that things are improving. Now, I want to make sure that that home ownership rate continues to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that discrimination is outlawed in all 50 states, not just less than half of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if you're passionate about it, if you have a child, maybe, I know there are a lot of folks that are watching who probably have a child or a niece or nephew in Gen Z who identify as
Mm-hmm.
part of the community. That's a reality. 25% of that generation identify as LGBTQ, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
So when folks are out there selling real estate or even just, on a patio having a cocktail with a partner maybe, just remember that 1 in 3 houses in America house someone who is part of our community. You already know us, you already love us. Just treat us the same.
Thank you. Just a comment that came in from Carlene Ryan. Thank you for sharing and bringing focus on the need for more education and understanding, which will increase support. So I echo that. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been wonderful. And again, we did share some links in the comments for anybody who wants to go learn more, sign up for some of these educational opportunities, and take advantage of what's out there. So again, Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you. I am the biggest HAR fan, and I'm so glad I could be with you this morning.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll see you again. I know we saw you in December at Realtor Celebration. Hopefully we'll see you again at an HAR event very soon. Well, that is it for this Member Focus Monday, but I do want to go ahead and alert everyone to what we're going to be discussing next week. We are going to be talking all about cryptocurrency and real estate. As we know, that seems like everybody has questions about it. Everybody's talking about it. So we're going to be talking about it next Monday. So be sure to tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.